Monday, November 16th, regular class. We're going to get into our story, Man from the South. The information up there. Make sure you finish your book report book by November 29th, which is next weekend. The idea being that we are going to be, when you come back from Thanksgiving, we're starting a novel, The Shadow Club, in class. And if you're not wanting to be reading 2 novels at the same time, then you're going to want to have it done by that point. Done? Like Burton's points for propping up her iPad? Yep, that kind of done.
That never happens.
No, totes. And then also the canned food drive, you can bring those in. Every can gets you 2 B points. You can bring in as many cans as you want, but you max out at 20 B points. Zach?
Does this count as popcorn?
No, I can see it, so you're fine. We're good to go. Grizzle?
I have a question about the book report.
Uh-huh.
So how are you going to... Okay, I forget. Did we read how to do that?
It's in the directions of the book report.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. For the download for the story today, you're going to download one called Man from the South. We only have a couple stories left. And the other one says, hey, you down there, that is for your test coming up. So I put that on there to give you plenty of time to read it. You don't really have to have it done until next week. But I figure if I give it to you now, you know your own time schedule, so I'll have you download those. But for now, we're going to deal with a man who's from the South. First off, this story is going to deal with suspense. Much more than our other stories did, which is one of the things that makes it Hiccup so memorable. My question is, what is suspense? Bale?
Build up to the climax.
So it's the rising action? More so than just the rising action in suspense, because not every story we've had so far has suspense in it. But you're on the right track of where it's located, at least. Brady?
Never mind.
That was also a solid call. Jeremy?
When something exciting happens and it cuts off at the exciting part.
It doesn't always have to cut off, but you're on the right track. And it's usually the exciting stuff, that the part of the story that keeps you intrigued and wanting to find out more. So the part of the story that keeps you all paying attention. In our mountain, which part of the mountain is it going to appear in? Carter?
The rising action.
The rising action, because that's where you're going up and it gets all interesting. So when I say, that kid just lost 8 points more, not the 2 from before, the kid that was just doing what they were doing right now. See, that's suspense. We were trying to figure out who I'm talking about. That was just making something up. There's no kid that got in trouble. But when you're all waiting to go, who is it? Who's going to be? I want to find it. Oh, that was just an educational tool so I can learn about suspense. See, you've just learned what suspense is. Because you were on the edge of your seat trying to figure out which kid it was that's going to lose points. Sometimes suspense is scary. Like today's story. It's going to deal with an old guy. Oh, those are the scariest. I know. It's going to. He's talking about him wearing a Panama hat, and he has these things called buckskin shoes, which are like old person shoes, and then a buckskin hat, which is like an old person hat. And then
Like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, close to. That's technically a fedora. But apparently when you get into them, it's all in how the hat is turned or twisted or something like that. So there's a fine line between the two of them. Are we all right?
Yeah.
Spit the water onto the iPad?
Nope.
That's good. Just missed it.
Inside the
Thank
What
goodness.
happened?
I don't know. He was laughing and then it was spit water all over himself.
Disgusting.
It's all kinds of great. All right, Man from the South. As we get into it, 1, you'll figure out the point of view pretty quickly. 2, for the setting, for the figuring out when it takes place, it's going to tell you a time of day, like right off the bat. It's going to tell you it's 6 o'clock. What you have to do is figure out, is it 6 o'clock a.m. or 6 o'clock p.m.? And the only way to figure that out is through evidence and use little examples in the story. Man from the South. It was getting on towards 6 o'clock, so I thought I'd buy myself a Coke and go out and sit in a deck chair by the swimming pool and have a little evening sun. I went to the bar, got the Coke, and carried it outside, and wandered down the garden toward the pool. It was a fine garden with lawns and beds of azaleas and tall coconut palms. Azaleas are a type of flower. And the wind was blowing strongly through the tops of the palm trees, making the leaves hiss and crackle as though they were on fire. I could see the clusters of big brown coconuts hanging down underneath the leaves. There were plenty of deck chairs around the swimming pool, and there were white tables and huge, brightly colored umbrellas, and sunburned men and women sitting around in swimsuits. In the pool itself, there were 3 or 4 girls and about a dozen boys, all splashing about and making a lot of noise and throwing a large, colorful beach ball at one another. I stood watching them. The girls were English girls from the hotel. The boys, I didn't know about, but they sounded American, and I thought they were probably naval cadets who had come ashore from the U.S. naval training vessel, which had arrived in the harbor that morning. Now, first off, do you guys know what a naval cadet is? Because we're talking about being naval cadets. Van Gelderheisen?
Like a cadet in the Navy?
Yes. So, do you know what a cadet is?
Like, yeah.
See, if you didn't monkey at me, I could call on you much quicker.
Oh.
Yeah, no. Monkey?
It's a cadet is a person that is training in like an army.
Nicely
or
done.
something.
So these are people who have joined the Navy and they're training to be part of the Navy, and there's a big Navy ship out there, so they came aboard. What time is our story taking place?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Now, is it AM or PM?
PM.
Daily?
PM.
How do you know?
It said evenings.
Nice done. Talks about it being in the evening. Your other hint is it talks about a bunch of kids playing in the pool, and kids are not playing in the pool at 6 a.m. They're going to be in bed sleeping. But in the evening time, then they're probably going to be out there at the pool. So you pick up on little clues like that. Let's see, and then we have that, the naval cadets. Oh, what point of view is it being told in?
The old
Alana,
First person.
how would you know?
Because the old guy is talking and he says I and them.
It works for me. Old guy talking with the I and the them. And do realize, even if it's not propped up, as soon as your iPad is tilted so that I can't see the screen, that's when it comes back to haunt you. Not that you guys would ever do that, but just to point things out.
So are you
Wait,
talking
so
about
you
like
can't-
this?
Correct.
this.
Because as soon as you do that, that's when the kids start playing. That's why it has to be flat on the desk. I know the bad kids ruin it for everyone, as I said. Why can't we just stab them? Yeah, that would cost you points. Good job. I know. I tried trusting kids. I learned my lesson. I went over and sat down under a yellow umbrella where there were 4 empty seats, and I poured my drink and settled back comfortably in a nice chair. It was very pleasant sitting there in the sunshine with my coat. It was pleasant to sit and watch the swimmers splashing about in the green water.
Green.
Yeah, green, not because it's like disease water, but we're going to find out in a moment it's taking place on an island. And in the islands, because it's hard to pump in fresh water, to the pools, they'll just use ocean water. And because of the algae in the ocean water, it's clean ocean water, but ocean water is naturally colory. And so,
Wait, is it still salt water?
yeah, still salt water and all that,
Ugh.
just salt water. You go swimming in the ocean.
I've been in the sea salt pool before.
There you go.
That's
So it's the
nasty.
same idea.
It's not that
It's
good.
not
Unless you like open your eyes.
Then that would be bad. The American sailors were getting on nicely with the English girls. They'd reached the stage where they were diving under the water and tipping them up by their legs. Just then, I noticed a small, oldish man walking briskly around the edge of the pool. He was immaculately dressed in a white suit, and he walked very quickly with little bouncing strides, pushing himself high up onto his toes with each step. Immaculately means perfectly done, like it's a white suit, like no marks on it or anything like that. It's just like a crisp, white, bright suit. And he's walking around and on his toes. He walks up.
He's an astronaut.
So yes, he's an astronaut. He had on a large, creamy Panama hat, and he came bouncing along this side of the pool, looking at the people in chairs. He stopped beside me and smiled, showing 2 rows of very small, uneven teeth, slightly tarnished, and I smiled back. You guys know what tarnished means? Yellow. So either not from brushing or from smoking or something like that, because when you guys are smoking your cigarettes and stuff, whenever you're inhaling, it goes across the teeth. Well, I mean, not anymore. You guys probably stopped. But with it goes across the
It's
teeth.
hard to stop.
It is. The best of us. And so it makes like a little film on the teeth.
Smells
I know. I have the same problem when kids smoke around me. Excuse, please, but may I sit here? Certainly, I said. Go ahead. He bobbed around to the back of the chair and inspected it for safety. Then he sat down and crossed his legs. His white buckskin shoes had little holes punched all over them for ventilation. So these are the white buckskin shoes, and the punching of the holes is because, where are they? I haven't gotten to it yet.
Jamaica.
The next line says Jamaica. So we're going to find out that they're down in Jamaica, which is on an island. And so, like with tennis shoes and Crocs, when it's hot, you want your toes to breathe so they don't sweat. So he took his nice pair of shoes and then took a knife and just went pokey, 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 and just poked holes in the top. Why? Old people are weird. I don't know. There's no good reason for it. So he's just got a pair of nice shoes with holes all jabbed in the top of them so that way his toes don't sweat. Totally normal. A fine evening, he said. They were all evenings fine here in Jamaica. I couldn't tell if the accent were Italian or Spanish, but I felt fairly sure he was some sort of South American. And old, too, when you saw him close. Probably around 68 or 70. Yeah, I said. It's wonderful here, isn't it? And who, might ask girl, these is no hotel people. He was pointing at the bathers in the pool. I think they're American sailors. They're Americans who are learning to be sailors. Of course they are Americans. Who else in the world is going to make as much noise as that? You are not American, no? No, I said. I'm not. Suddenly, one of the American cadets was standing in front of us. He was dripping wet from the pool, and one of the English girls was standing there with him. Are these chairs taken? No, I answered. You mind if I sit down? Go ahead. Thanks, he said. He had a towel in his hand, and when he sat down, he unrolled it and produced a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. He offered the cigarettes to the girl. She refused. He offered them to me, and I took one. And the little man said, "Thank you, no, but I think I have a cigar." He pulled out a crocodile case and got himself a cigar. Then he produced a knife, which had a small scissors in it, and he snipped off the end of the cigar. All right. We find out the boy who just shows up has a bad habit. What's his bad habit?
Smoking.
Nicely done. And apparently the old guy also has a bad habit. What's his bad habit?
Smoking.
Smoking cigars. When he talks about the crocodile case, just like when you guys smoke your cigars, you don't want your cigar to get broken because it ruins your fine cigar. And so you have these cases that you put them in, and then you pull them apart. It looks sort of like a pencil pouch, but they're for cigars. And you can put the cigar in there. It's called a crocodile case because the skin is crocodile skin. So like a leather, they just skin a crocodile and then wrap it around there. So that's the crocodile skin case that this guy uses. And then also from your guys' extensive cigar smoking, the end of the cigar, in order to smoke it, you have to cut off the end because it's a closed thing. If you don't snip off the end of it, then you're like, it's like sucking on a stick. Nothing happens and your head explodes. It doesn't do you any good. So he says he pulls out scissors with a knife in the end. Just like the little...
I have 3 of those.
Yes, one of those little things. Snippy, 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 snippy. Just pulls out something like that and then can snip off the end.
I have
and
one
then
of
it allows
those,
you to
except it's red.
to light it. The problem is, if you remember from the very beginning of the story, they're talking about the fact that they're outdoors, down at a pool, and the wind is really kicking and going through there, which, as everyone knows, makes it hard to light your cigar when you have lots of wind out there. Here, let me give you a light. The American boy held up his lighter. That will not work in this wind. Sure it'll work. It always works. The little man removed his unlighted cigar from his mouth, cocked his head on one side, and looked at the boy. Always, he said softly. Sure, it never fails. Not with me anyway. The little man's head was still cocked over on one side. He was still watching the boy. Well, so you say, this famous lighter, it never fails. Is that you say? Sure, the boy said. That's right. He was about 19 or 20 with a long, freckled face and a rather sharp, bird-like nose. His chest was not very sunburned, and there were freckles there too, and a few wisps of pale reddish hair. He was holding the lighter in his right hand, ready to flip the wheel. Yeah, it never fails, he said, smiling now because he was purposely exaggerating his little boast. I promise you, it never fails. One moment, please. The hand that held the cigar came up high, palm outward as though we're stopping traffic. Now just one moment. He had a curiously soft, toneless voice, and he kept looking at the boy all the time. Okay, this lighter he's talking about, the problem is usually when you're outside and you're trying to light your cigars, as you do, the lighter will get blown out by the wind. So they created a thing called a windproof lighter, also known as a Zippo lighter. And, and so the Zippo was created so that in war times, it was actually created during World War I believe, you could light it and not have to worry about the wind. And the way it works is one that you don't throw it away like when you guys light your fireworks on the 4th of July to blow your fingers off. And then you get those lighters, you just chuck them. This is a lighter that you keep, and you can refill it yourself. It has a little thing in the bottom, and you pull it up, and you have to squirt lighter fluid into it. I don't smoke. I keep this one in my closet, so before second period today, I had to go fill it up. I squirt a little lighter fluid, and it goes in there, and you let it sit for a little bit, and when you're ready to light it, you flip it open, there's a little thing. And the idea being is that when you light it, it stays lit. If you can blow on it, and that way, you're supposed to be, when I was a kid, I remember they had commercials of a guy on a motorcycle for the Zippo lighter. And he was like on a motorcycle, like driving along, like with a cigarette. I was like, on it, and I was like, "Ooh, that's," as a kid, I was like, "That's so cool." I was like, "I want to smoke and drive motorcycles too." But apparently, because of that, they stopped letting people do commercials like that. But the idea being is that you can, kids and smoking. But that's the idea behind the lighter. So, this kid's bragging about the fact that his lighter will always light no matter what, which gets the attention of the old guy. The drawback is, we're going to stop there. Because, trust me, if we get further, it gets even worse because you get farther into the suspense. Right now, you just have the idea that something fun is coming, but if we read further, it'd be like stopping right in the middle of the fun, and you'd be even more angry at me. So, yes.
That's cool.
Once you find out what happens with the lighter, then you get really mad at me if we stop. So just go ahead and...
Lights the gun on fire.
He probably throws it in the pool. He's like, it never fails.
And the pool catches on fire. It's flammable. No.
Wait, did somebody die in the story?
That's awesome.
No! No one dies in the story.
Yes.
Yes.
What's important is no one dies.
Yes.